heard some rumors that the University of Ottawa, where I used to work, was doing some amazing things. And so here I am. But just a little bit of context though, because I'm only going to talk about buildings. And I think the greenhouse gas problem is really simple for me. It's 1/3 of the greenhouse gases produced by building activities. 1/3 is transportation, and 1/3 is industry, manufacturing, and electricity generation. So they're all important. But I only know something about buildings, so I'm not going to talk about other stuff I don't know. Is that nice? Okay, so in the context for me is, of course, the University of Ottawa. It's a big school. I think the population on campus is about 50,000 people. So, 50,000, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of buildings. It started super humbly in 1848. It just taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. I think in French, and it was a Christian school. And then in 1965, there was the Ottawa University Act, and it was created in 1965 as a public institution. It was heavily in debt. Education is not a good business. So it's a very fertile place when you don't have much money to talk about efficiency and productivity and saving greenhouse gases. Well, it just falls out the other end. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So here's the deep history. Now, why do I have information about 1974? That's special because 1973, some of you may remember, there was an oil embargo, and the price of oil shot up to $30 a barrel, and the university said, what are we going to do about that? So they hired a full-time professional engineer, energy manager in 1974. So he started measuring stuff and tracking stuff, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So there's a nice history and a great corporate ethic for this stuff, and here's the proof. Here's the proof. You have the same energy over 40 years, give or take. And the campus has tripled, and the population's tripled, and the research intensity's tripled. So how's that possible? Well, it's only possible if the energy used per square meter is 1/3 of what it used to be. And so we keep progressing. So since 1990, it's come down about 40%, the intensity. But we did a lot of work in the 80s when it was just, buildings were just ridiculous. Heating and cooling the same room at the same time. And a lot of buildings are still like that. But after 40 years of work, you can actually get somewhere. So there was a budget cut process. Money appeals to everybody. I think it's a nice dimension everybody can understand. So in 2009, there was a budget cut process, but it was enlightened relative to the other ones I'd seen, where you could either attract new revenue, cut costs, or invest in efficiencies. And they actually said that. So I said, hey, I got a list of things that need some funding. And so I had about $9.5 million worth of things. It was just a spreadsheet with about 13 lines. Some of it was solid waste or furniture recycling related, but most of it was energy. And so we're just going to talk about energy. And the cumulative savings over the next 6 years was $15.3 million. So they got all their money back and more, right? So the whole greenhouse gas battle, I'm talking energy, but there's a direct relation with greenhouse gases. And this $9.5 million produced, actually another $2 million on top of that, because there's something that happened since then, got us to about 10,000 tons. So the University of Ottawa had last year audited for the regulation in Ontario where you have to report your greenhouse gases. We had 15,000 tons and change. So if we hadn't saved the 10,000, it would have been 25. Just highlighting that. So you can do some amazing things with some just simple proven things. And so the first thing when you're reducing costs is once they're reduced, they're gone. The accountants forget really quickly. They don't remember at all anything. So you have to keep reminding them. So this is based on a model of business as usual. So the business as usual is gone. You can't see it. And it's not in the books anymore. But they hired this MBA, really clever guy to work with us because they had a hunch I might be achieving things that people cared about. And so they said, MBA guy, get him on the ledger. I want to see his stuff show up on the ledger. So you need a complicated model. So they made a 5-dimensional model Climate, I never bothered with climate because it kind of averages out over the years, even though it's getting a little bit warmer. Population, research intensity, the price of energy, and then there's one more. Anyway, it escapes me. But anyway, so we got support from the administration to show that we were actually saving, and so they bought in. So I promised them $2.5 million with that $9.5 million, and I delivered $4 million. That's what that other graph showed. This one here. So the end result was almost $4 million a year. So under promise, over deliver, and you can survive at this game. It's really important. So here's something that happens when you maybe shared a bed with your sibling or something. And so the red arrows going up are the expansion and the adding new buildings on the campus. And the arrows going down in the green columns is the actual. So the business as usual again is the red. It's not really there. And it's what would have been had we not done anything. So the green is the actual progress, and the going down is what we call eco-prosperity. So when you're doing efficiency or productivity, it's really just productivity. You're cutting waste. So there's some energy being used that doesn't add to the mission, doesn't add to the education, doesn't add to the research. It's just wasted. So you get rid of it. And so this shows the struggle, because things are always growing, especially since 2000. It's been intense. So I'll talk about one particular building, because it's really the most dramatic deep energy retrofit that I've heard of, never mind that I was involved in. And it's a big team of people. I'm not trying to honk my own horn here, but so it's a typical library. There must be 16 of these in Ontario. In fact, we have the benchmarking data for 2 different years. So this is kind of middle of the pack. And we're talking about a dual duct heating, cooling, ventilation system. Okay, that's like la 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 noise. I understand, but it's like when you take your shower, you get the hot and the cold just right, and then you flick it up to the shower. With these thermostats in each of these rooms, that's a zone, they blend hot and cold air to get the right temperature in the space. And historically, it can be some of the worst and most extravagant systems. So how bad was it? Well, it was, like I said, middle of the pack. So it was about 1,600 megajoules. I know that's a metric unit of energy. So it's all the energy. Electricity, gas, steam, hot water, everything going into the building, broken down into energy units, nice metric energy units that everybody can understand, right? I got you converted. So the worst library in the system is up here. Oh, I guess you can't see that. But the top is double what we were, and the best is 800, that dot at the bottom. Can I see your picture? So this one on the bottom is about 800, and the worst one's up here. So that's 2 orders of magnitude in the same class of building where they're doing the same thing. Students go to find books, read books, study, and leave. You know, so like, why would there be that much range? Okay, and that's typical. I saw another survey of hotels in Vancouver. Same thing. 2 orders of magnitude, same building class. You know, clean beds, clean towels, showers, and get out of town. Why would you have so much variation? It's because nobody cares and nobody's doing anything, right? You don't get that in automotive. Pickup trucks, you don't see 2 orders of magnitude in the efficiency of pickup trucks. No way. So, that's not the mouse. Here we go. So these are the things that we did. Now, that's a lot of noise to most people, but technical people in the room, if there are any engineers or ventilation people, it's basically simple. It's reducing loads. You put heat recovery on the ventilation air. So all the air coming into the building is preheated by the air leaving the building. You have them for homes. They're old technology. It's boring. And then you have 2 existing fans given new careers. The 2 return fans, one was redefined as a hot deck fan, and the other one was exhausting all the air through the heat wheels. So they had a completely different job 40 years later into their careers. Kind of amazing. And then you have free cooling. We limited free cooling because it costs a lot of heating. It's kind of a misnomer, especially in a climate like Sault Ste. Marie. So, and then we added 245, so we reduce heat by doing heat transfer, and then we also recycle heat by putting little chillers to move heat around. So we have enough heat on the cold deck, we move it out of the cold deck. We kept it because we didn't do the free cooling in the winter, and we're moving it all to the hot deck. So no central plant steam heat was going to the hot deck until it got to about -8 Celsius outside. Below that we did, but between 8 and 15 Celsius in the shoulder seasons, this building would export heat to the district heating and cooling on campus. And so we got to some pretty amazing results with all that, and here's the results. Drum roll, please. No, don't. So heating was reduced 107%. So that doesn't seem like much, but I throw steam in there. So steam humidification, that's all the steam is doing. And all the heating, about 16 plus 4, that's 20,000 GHGs of energy, went to minus about 1,700 here. So that's 107% reduction on an old existing building. There's lots of old buildings that are just as wasteful as this, and some are more wasteful. You can do even better. And so cooling, the cooling is also net positive cooling. People talk about net zero buildings. Well, this is not a net zero building because electricity, we could only reduce it 30% with the measures we brought to bear. So even with the 2 chillers running most of the year, it's still 30% less electricity. So, and here's an example of 2 more. So one's the law building on the left. And the chemistry research building on the right. And so when you teach law, lawyers, I know Diane's a lawyer, but they get pretty excited, as you saw. And there could be a lot of heat generated by the education of lawyers. And so we thought, wow, what a great idea. So we're gonna tap into that heat. We're going to stop free cooling that building too, and we're going to put the return fans into retirement. And we put a new fan to blow through the heat recovery. So we had a really nice reverse flow heat recovery, a little bit like your nose does in the winter. When you breathe through your nose, it's doing heat recovery. And so that heat, we just got to move it through the chill water lines that are flowing all year anyway. So we cool the law comfort system to manage the heat in the law education building, and we move it to the chemistry research building. So that's without much spending, right? Because the chill water lines were already there, so it was brilliant. Closer? Oh, there, that's close. Okay. And so the chemistry research building is unofficially, and you can't tell anybody, subsidized by the law faculty. Because the dean would want their cut for sure, and we can't have that. It gets messy. So here's a capital cost summary. They each cost $900,000 to do. The library retrofit was $2.5 million, by the way. It was a bigger job, and it took a few extra months. It took about 6 months to do, but the building was occupied the whole time. So it's like open lung surgery on your patient while they're at work. I don't know if doctors have caught up to that yet, but that's what we do in buildings. And so the savings were phenomenal. They're about 20% return on your capital, and about $700,000